Eurovision rehearsals are officially underway, and we're already starting to see some interesting patterns. Some countries are changing it up massively, whilst other countries are taking a huge risk or playing it safe by not changing much at all. And at this point, we can already gauge some information that may shift expectations either up or down. The photos aren't released until tomorrow, so I'll be doing a reaction video to the photos once they are out. So subscribe if you want to stay tuned. I'll put them here once they're in. Sweden has had their first rehearsals and they didn't change much of the staging at all. And that's really interesting, especially given that Felicia said that they would change everything for Eurovision on Swedish television, because this was already one of the most polished performances coming into Eurovision. And what we know now is that everything that worked in Melodifestivalen is still in. The masks, the lasers, the big visual moment. And from early reactions, it still feels like a huge moment on stage. There are some interesting changes. For example, with the lasers, apparently she's now more interacting with them, initially fighting with them, and then moving into more controlling them. So it kind of tells a story, but otherwise nothing major has changed. And that tells us one thing, this still worked. Because after her comment on Swedish TV, I was a bit nervous. But now the question isn't whether Sweden is changing everything up. The question is it playing it safe because it's worried? Or is it playing it safe to win? Or maybe is it just too safe? Croatia might have had one of the biggest glow-up of rehearsals so far. Coming into today, this wasn't seen by everyone as a standout entry, but from the first rehearsals, that perception might be changing. They've gone much bigger with the staging, using the catwalk to create a dramatic entrance, and the whole performance now seems much more cinematic, like an actual journey on the stage. And from early reactions, it's not just seen as visually bigger, it's also seen as much more emotional and immersive, with visuals moving from a cave to a forest to a wormhole at the end. And that's exactly the kind of upgrade that can change how a song hits on the Eurovision stage. So Croatia might not just be a qualifier anymore, they might actually be one of the biggest movers after rehearsals. And then you have Greece, which might be one of the most interesting transformations of the day. Greece might have just created one of the most memorable performances of the year. Because coming into rehearsals, the big question mark wasn't the televote, it was whether it could score enough jury points to actually compete. And from first descriptions, the staging sounds completely different from what people expected. This is being described almost like a video game on stage, with multiple illusions and characters that come alive. And Aquila is basically playing a role inside that world. He even transforms himself into this tiger-like character with orange and black fur, furry boots, the whole thing. But then everything changes. He suddenly breaks character, takes off his glasses, and he addresses his mother in this really beautiful emotional moment. And that contrast from something surreal and playful to something real and emotional, that's exactly the kind of moment that could connect massively with audiences. So if this lands the way it sounds, Greece might not just do really well, it might be an actual contender. And now before we get into the final big one, Finland, there are also a few other countries that haven't been getting as much attention today, but still brought some interesting staging choices. These three countries all went in completely different directions, but all added something new. Moldova has basically taken what already worked and made it bigger. Satoshi still has that chaotic energy running all over the stage, but now he's just got more space to play with. The big change here is the visual identity. Chainmail costumes, metallic styling across the whole group, and a much more defined aesthetic, plus a colorful, almost anime-inspired backdrop that really leans into his style. So this is not a reinvention, this is just more polished and more complete. Whereas Portugal has gone in the opposite direction with much more minimal and focused approach. The staging is built around one continuous camera shot that films across the whole group, which makes it feels much more intimate and intentional. They've also brought the violin moment, which adds to that emotional, traditional feel. And then it builds to a visual payoff at the end, where the concept of rosa literally becomes manifest on stage. This is probably one of the most stripped back performances, not just of the day, but of the year. So not huge changes here. But then there's Georgia, which might have the most unexpected staging of the day. This is a full concept performance, be-inspired outfits, and even a second version of the group on stage. And this is something new, cyborg versions of themselves literally performing. With a big laser show and a really high energy visual style. This feels like something we've never really seen from them before on the Eurovision stage. It's weird, it's bold, and it's definitely gonna stand out. So none of these three necessarily change the winner conversation, but they all add something different and unique to the show. So I just wanted to highlight that. And speaking of the winner conversation, because now over to Finland, which again has taken a slightly different approach. Because Finland, they haven't reinvented their whole staging, they've just made it bigger. Because this was already one of the strongest and most memorable performances and stagings coming into the Eurovisions. The concept is still the same. It's dramatic, it's theatrical, built around the two performers and the dynamic between them, but now it feels much more intense and cinematic. The setting has been expanded with this abandoned orchestral stage with chairs turned upside down with a much stronger visual narrative. And both performers, believe it or not, have had a big glow up with updated styling and a more striking look on stage. And the whole performance literally built towards that big climax with Linda running across the stage to join Petra. And then everything ends in this full dramatic moment where the whole set goes up in flames. So this isn't a completely new performance, but it's a much more polished and intense version of what already worked. And if that lands the way it sounds, Finland is not just going to be a strong contender, it might become untouchable. So that's where everything stands after the first rehearsals. Some big surprises, some safe choices, and some contenders really starting to emerge. So let me know what you think so far in the comments. And this is just the beginning, so like and subscribe if you want to stay tuned for more updates from the rehearsals. And tomorrow, I'll be doing a video looking at the actual pictures from these rehearsals. I can't wait. See you in another video soon. Bye.